Hello, thank you for joining me today. We are going to talk all about the differences between pressed pigments and eyeshadows because I don't know about you, but when I started hearing a lot about pressed pigments, I didn't know what the difference was and exactly how that translated into using the products. So I wanted to have the same brand so we really could compare. So this is Lime Crime is what I'm going to use today. If you are interested about learning about the history of Lime Crime and how I created this look, that video was posted on Wednesday. I will have that linked up above and down below. But so we have the Venus, which is eyeshadows, and they are made in the US, which is great. And then this is Plushies, which is pressed pigments. So we have two different styles, same brand. Let's just talk generally about the differences, and then I will do some swatching so that you can see. So pressed pigments are actually pigments pressed into the pan. There is no fillers, where eyeshadows have a mixture of the pigments, micas, binders, and preservatives. So there's more packed into this pan, if you'll say, than with a pressed pigments. And that is why the pressed pigments are usually more of an intense color because they have less fillers, I guess you'd say, in them. So the pressed pigment is just its natural mineral without anything added to it. There's no binders, mica, nothing like that added to that pigment. Sometimes our eyeshadows now are so pigmented though that sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. I mean, I have eyeshadows that are just super duper pigmented that you may swear, well, how can there be anything else added to this? It's so pigmented, it has to be a pressed pigment, but then you look and it's not. So sometimes you can't always tell the difference when you're applying it. Where you can usually really tell the difference is when you're removing it. A lot of times the pressed pigments will stain your lids. Not forever, and it will go away, but if you're using them one day and the next day you're going to use a different color, you might really need to apply a concealer to your lids before applying that new color, because you might have some staining from the day before that pressed pigment. I have definitely seen that where I've used like this Plushies one. When I used that, when I've used all the colors in here, the pink particularly, the next day I still have a little bit of pinkness on my lids, but by like in a couple days it completely goes away. I don't have the exact colors, but I thought that let's just swatch some of these. So we have this Divine, and it feels very soft. So that is the eyeshadow. And then let's swatch the Mango. And this is just ultra creamy, super soft. And it is a little bit more powdery. So sometimes you're going to have a little bit more fallout or kickback in the pan with pressed pigments. Not always, but so granted, it's not exactly the same color, but so this is the pressed pigments. That is color Dragon Fruit. And see, it is staining my fingers, where if I take the color Rebirth, which these are not as soft as the pressed pigments feel. So these two are pressed pigments, that's eyeshadow. But again, that is really pigmented and it's still stained. But if I take a wipe, so you can see that this is the eyeshadow. It did come completely off, where most of it came off, but this is that pink pressed pigment. And you can see there is still a little bit of staining. This is the yellow pressed pigment, and this is eyeshadow. So again, they're not the same colors, but I thought that it would kind of give you an idea. And this is another eyeshadow. So can you tell which is the pressed pigments and which is the eyeshadows? I didn't put them all in a row for you. Okay, so this one, these two are pressed pigments. This one is pressed and this one is pressed. Eyeshadow. Again, this is not the same colors, but okay. So here we have a pressed pigment and eyeshadows. So even though the eyeshadows are definitely still pigmented, you can see how I feel like with the pressed pigment, it's that pigmentation goes all the way through to the end of the swatch, where with the eyeshadows, when you get towards the end of the swatches, it fades off a little bit. So there is how some of the differences look. Now that you kind of see a little bit of the difference, let's use a makeup wipe. And I'm going to try to wipe that off. Of course, it kind of got all over, but here we have, this is just a couple swipes. So this was the pressed pigment. These were still eyeshadows, but look at how much they were pigmented, they stained. And this is the orange pressed pigment, but that pink, the yellow didn't stain as much. That pink color, I find that the pink and reds of pressed pigments are the ones that are going to stain the most. Here is really cleaning it off. You can definitely, I feel like, see a little bit of the pink left. But so now that we kind of know the difference, a simple way to remember it is just the pressed pigment. Just think of it as you're getting the full kind of bang for your buck. It is no fillers, no binders, where your eyeshadow has other things in them, more binders and filler kind of things. So if you think of it in that way. Let's talk about tips to using your pressed pigments. You want to make it last longer. Well, this is with even eyeshadow. If you want to make any of your pressed pigment eyeshadow last longer, use an eye primer first. There is definitely a whole array of them, and you can test out what different ones. I personally like the Urban Decay Potion Primer. For me, that works the best. I'm trying to find a dupe for it, but the problem that I'm having, I just got Milani, so I'm going to try that. But I tried an e.l.f. one, and then it gave me one of those like white dots. I forget what they're called. I can never pronounce that. But so you just kind of have to play around with it, or use concealer or something like that. See what works for you. If you're wearing glitter pressed pigments, you want to use usually a glitter glue and different techniques than just brushing them on. I did do a whole video about using glitter on your eyes. Again, I'll link that up above and down below to watch that. But today we're just talking about pressed pigments, not pressed glitter pigments. You can apply them dry, damp, or with your fingers. And you want to go light in the pan if you're applying with your fingers, because they are pretty soft and creamy. So you want to go light, because otherwise you can kind of dip in. You usually get the most color with a damp brush. So let's see, I'm going to show you. Let's go with yellow first. Okay, so this is with my finger. Then let's do a dry brush. So you're still getting some color, but yeah, you can definitely tell. And then I'm going to use, this is the e.l.f. Matte Magic Setting Spray to wet the brush. And I'm just going to go into one corner of the pan. And you can see that it does change the color of the shadow. So that is the yellow. I won't do all four, but I feel like I want to do another one, right? Yeah. Let's do the pink, because that one is definitely bright. And it's just so soft. But see, you can kind of see in the pan that there is a little bit of powder, and then when you apply it on the finger. So this is just with the finger. And I'm using a clean brush. Yeah, and see, it does get a little bit messy in the pan. There's the brush. So you're still definitely getting a lot of color. And then let's wet it. So there you can see the differences. So yeah, you just kind of play around with it, see which style you like, use all three techniques. I mean, if I wanted to do a monochromatic look, really I could use just this pink color with maybe a white to blend it all in, and use one shade 3 different ways, 3 different techniques of applying it, and get a different look. You know, that's kind of a good idea for a video idea. Let me know if you'd like to see that, where I use just one, well, maybe 2 shadows, a white and a color or a neutral, and use just one shade but different ways of applying it. Let me know. I think I'm going to add that to the list. Okay, that was a side note, but when you do wet the brush, it depends what you want. If you wet your brush all the time, you may not care, but when I'm wetting my brush, I like to just go into one portion of the pan, I always go in the lower right hand corner. That's just my preference, so I always know that that is where I put it, because over time it will change the consistency of the color. This is both for pressed pigments and for eyeshadows. So that is just kind of a quick video today. I found it interesting, so I was starting to research what the difference is. And then I thought, well, if I find it interesting, I may not be the only one, so let me share with you guys. So I find it interesting, and yeah, let me know. I definitely think I'm gonna do that. Film a video with one color, different techniques. Yay, I'm excited about that. But let me know down below if there was something that you learned today, if you found this interesting, and if there's any other topics like this that you would like to learn about, whether it's like how mascara is made, the history of it, or anything like that. If you have questions, I love researching, so let me know down below and I will add it to my list to research and film for you. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you back here on Monday. I will be doing my last installment of my palette declutter and organization. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you hopefully back here on Monday. Thanks. Bye.